be recording. So, um, yeah, track breakdown of H.F.S or Heavy Fucking Stomper. I said before, the track name is pretty simple. um, uh, I think a small history about the track. It's that it's actually one of my first tracks that I made. I think my third track, but for me, it was um, pretty special because I was in this phase of, what direction do I want to go. My first two tracks were not that really industrial or super heavy, but I wanted to go in that direction. So I started working on heavier sounds, and out of the blue, this came up. Um, I think it's kind of maybe my most I don't know, for people who start to know me right now or what I do now, they forget this track, like they don't know it exists, and it kind of launched when I was still, I'm still small, but still small, so it's not that it got a lot of downloads from big artists, but never really played, so it never really took off. I had a I think 70,000 plays on SoundCloud. That was pretty cool. People bought it, but it also went silent pretty fast. But for me, it's still one of my coolest tracks. Um, and actually also one of my most simple tracks when it came to production. It may sound crazy, but it's actually not that crazy. So I'll start with going over the elements, which are compared to my tracks now not that much. Um, so maybe does everyone know the track here in the room? Do I need to show it maybe, or everyone knows it? Yeah, Hobie knows it. Yeah, I think most people know it. So I got a lot of questions also about the kick, which is actually not that crazy as I mentioned before. Um, let's maybe play it first. So yeah, I'm working on my speakers, so I always have to mute my mic when I play something, so that's I can't speak when I play something. But as you could hear, it's a layer. It's like a few layers. The first layer is, yeah, don't mind the name, but it's a kick I made when I was younger, um, and it is actually the bass kick. Or the fundamental, um, what you can hear in the beginning and here before the big break. Um, I don't know how I got to this kick, but I got inspired by something, and I was like, okay, I have to layer kicks, and I can actually show you the kick I layered. For some people who know the VST, it's from Raw Kick, a really cool VST um, for kicks. It's mainly used in, I think, hardstyle hardcore. And I think I even still know the preset. Oh shit! Where are the synths? Okay. So I was scrolling. Um, Where can I see the presets? I think it's the Beyond Cursed. Let's check. Which one is it? Is this one? So yeah, oh yeah, my mic was on, but so this is actually yeah, raw pop, yeah, raw kick, as you see. Um so yeah, this is the kick. This is it. I was just scrolling presets and I was like, damn, this one slaps, a crazy sound. Um and I just layered it with the bass kick that I already had, and it gave this result that we all know. To layer it, I'm actually kind of also sorry, but it's like my final project before I went to mastering. I bounced everything to audio, so I'm gonna try to recreate it as good as possible. But I think it's made in Ableton 9, and this also means that I don't have the backups. I think from Ableton 10 you had backup options, so I'm missing a lot of things that I did in the start. But basically, it's that kick with a MIDI, and I think with the double ones or before the break it jumps a few notes. But that's actually it. To layer it, the let's say the sample kick from raw kick had a lot of low end, so to layer it you got to remove the low end, or at least I hope I did. Yeah, the session will be recorded. It's recording right now. So let's check. It seems I didn't took away the low end, that long ago. So you see, I think for this one I had to do it because it's pretty I don't know, stereo. I don't know what I did. Let's see, I dipped it. Uh, I don't know. Let's check. Like I said, it was even my beginning days, so I didn't. Oh. So even this one has low end. Like I said in the description, in the end, there will be a part where I would say I would do things differently today. This would be something like this. I would cut the low end. But yeah, if it fits, it sits, right? So I layered these kicks. It worked. It worked well, and that's actually how the the sound design of the kick went. It was really simple. Um, like I say to people a lot of time, people ask me how do you make the kicks? Well, yeah, I just layered it and it fit. I think someone's mic is on. I'm gonna mute you quickly. Okay. So yeah, like my advice also, maybe for some people who are really new to layering, is it can lead to really cool stuff. Layering kicks, layering audio, and sometimes it's a struggle to make it fit, and sometimes it just fits. And that's my point. Back in the day, it just fit. Um, so yeah, it works really well also to layer this kind of, when you have this uh, bass kick or this starting kick like I have here, to layer it with other kicks or maybe a hardcore kick can really be cool. It lead to create cool or crazy results. um, what happened with this element is that I bend it left and right, um, to create a kind of stereo effect. And I even didn't use this EQ up to, like optimally because I could really. Oh yeah, okay. I did use it. So to explain this really fast, this EQ has mid side option. Um, for people who don't know mid side, you can look at it really simple. It's your mid information, not mono, but mid information and your side information. So your mid information will contain all the elements that are pretty centered, and your side information will contain delays, reverbs, anything you push to the sides, is your side info. So what I did is I lowered the mid volume. It's not even completely, I think, but I lowered the mid volume so that the sides remain like more dominant. And I mixed this in parallel, as you can see here in the group. So we have the bass kick. What happened? I'll explain it later. You got the raw kick, um, the sample as I just freeze and flattened it, and you got the stereo-ish side kick for more side information that makes the kick wider, um, in hardcore and hardstyle, all these stuff. It happens a lot. I also have stereo rumbles, but just for more stereo in the kick. Um, to finish it off, what I do here is actually a simple trick. Um, if I want more, it's a trick I used to use. Um, when I want more subs from my original kick, I I made an extra track, as you can see here, and I routed the main kick to the track, and within the queue, I cut off all the highs, so only the subs remain. Um, and let's say, how do you say it? What happens is when you layer those two channels, um, because they're the same element, they add up because they're like in phase, so they add up. So when I use the same element and I just keep the low end, it will add up. So it's a kind of subtle or natural low end boost that for me sounds way better than using an EQ, because using an EQ with a shelf or a bell can be really aggressive, and this can be really subtle, gentle, because you mix it in parallel. Um, so that's this trick explained, um, that I used to use, not so much anymore. Um, the first clear, no, no, I keep it. Um, because that's the point. I keep the frequency because when I double it, it will add up. So it's when it's, how to say it, in phase. The phase um stuff. When you layer two samples or kick samples, that's why layering can be a pain in the ass, or it fits. Um, when you layer kicks and one kick is out of phase, you will get an even weaker kick, even softer kick, or less bassy kick than when they are in phase. Um, so that's actually, that trick is what I use to enhance the bass. I'm just gonna duplicate a sample. I could duplicate the track, and use this EQ and put it on this. It's the same thing, but I used an audio track, um, because I think right now, I don't know if I did some more processing on this, but the fun part is that I can do whatever I want on this track, on this kick channel. This one will always be the same, and I removed my EQ. So that's why I used the audio channels. Um, So yeah, that's that. On the kick group, there is an auto filter. That's how I like to make my filter kick parts. I just use an auto filter on the kick group. And I'm gonna search a kind of sweet spot with a little bit of resonance so that it, still has this nasty-ish sound. Utility, I can show you what I do with that. Where is he? So, as some people know, and some, did you use one MIDI audio track for the kick or two? I just used the sample audio, the my own sample, my own kick sample to start, and just one MIDI device, and I sample the kick, and I go on with that. Um, I don't really use a lot of MIDI devices when it comes to kicks. I always, I love to work with samples, or when I use a MIDI or a drum rack, it will instantly go to a sample because I like to see what happens. Like, for example, the phasing issue thing or the phasing thing. Let's say this kick is a layer kick and it's out of phase. Let's see if I can, for example, like this. Let's say kind of out of phase. When it's a MIDI block, I don't know. I can see it. It's just a MIDI block, and I can see it's getting triggered, but I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So when I work with MIDI devices for percussion, when I have a kind of bass sound, basic sound or sound that I would like to use, I will instantly go to audio, just to know what happens. Um, where was I explaining? So yeah, utility. What I do with utility is kind of micro dynamics, where I mean that I will do volume automation on really, with small, like small volume automation. Um, I come from a more, let's say, studio education, recording, mixing bands, and automation is really key when you're mixing bands, and you can really enhance the dynamics when you use volume automation on your elements, groups, whatever. So that's what I do on the master. I'll show you later, and that's what I do on the kick individually. Um, for this part, what I do most of the time is when, uh, for example, here when I use a filter kick, um, and let's say the bass kicks in, I give that first kick a gentle push, and it's not much. I think here it's like 1 dB, um, but it's that micro dynamic that gives that extra push, um, and it's not super hearable, but that's the point. It doesn't have to be super dominating, because then it's out of proportion, but it can be that extra push. For example, in let's say that kind of offbeat part, um, slash first drop. What you see here is that I follow. Every kick hit has that slight, that small push of volume to make that doof doof doof. It really has to, you know, bang the door. So microdynamics help for that. Small volume adjustments can really help for that extra push. And it's let's say when I tell to people like use volume automation, um, in your breaks or whatever, use volume automation. Um, People always tell me, "Oh yeah, it's so in front of your nose that you forget it." Volume is, I think, one of the powerful, most powerful tools we have, but it's so easy, kind of, that we forget it. You know, so volume automation, it's a really good thing to get these extras. And a delay for this, I think, kind of sound. I If I would do this again today, I probably won't use it like this. I think more send return thing. I love to work with send return. But yeah, it worked. Um, so I left it in. It worked. Back in the day, I was less thinking, more doing, and now it's the other way around. Sometimes kill the vibe, but so yeah, that's it for the kick. Um, I don't know if you could hear the difference if I use the volume automation with or without, but we can try. Gonna turn off the mic quickly. I think a really tiny bit. Yeah, it's really subtle, but that's the point, because if you go above that 1 dB, it can be really too much, and in the end you're gonna push the volume with a master chain. Um, and didn't use volume automation on the master. Oh yeah, yeah, I got, yeah, okay, that way back in time. So I used let's say a master chain before the master chain, and I think I used, yeah, normal. I used the volume automation of the fader. So to go further on the volume automation, this is what I do. So you have a break, I lower in volume. Um, the drop hits, but it hits way harder, and it's maybe also really subtle, but it will hit way harder, like 1 or 2 dB of different. Excuse me, of difference is a big jump in the end. So um, same here on the master. Important parts get a small boost in volume, especially the kick, or it's actually, to give the kick more punch or push. Same here in the break. I do it all the time. Every track has volume automation on the master. Um, the This one is already pretty soft. This break is meant to kind of fade out to then explode. Um, but for all my other tracks, there's volume automation all the time when it comes to break and drops. Um, when I mix or mixed metal or bands or whatever, it's full of volume automation. But the thing with techno is that you have to DJ with it, and then you want the main parts to be more static, um, just to make DJing easier. But if I wouldn't think about DJing, my main drop would probably be 1 or 2 dB louder than everything else, just for that, that energy, the yeah, for the energy, kind of. But it's just not so fun when you're DJing and out of the blue the volume jumps for 2 dB. So that's why we keep it simple. But it's a good tip, because when I'm mastering tracks, I have to do this a lot in the mastering phase. What is, it's not bad, but sometimes I have to do it too much, because they they put more and more and more effects in that build up, and another riser and another reverb and another delay, and let it, it's rising, 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 but the volume is rising as well. And what happens is that you got this big build up, and then the drop hits, and it's like, you know, there's no power. That's that's pure because the volume of the build up is louder than the volume of the drop. So that's why it's important to use volume automation, because 9 times out of 10, the break slash build up is gonna give more volume. So if you counter that rise in volume with your volume automation going down, people don't notice that there's volume automation. People really don't know. But when that drop hits, you get that extra impact, and that's what you need. That impact when your drop hits. So volume automation, I think it's one of the most powerful tools to make it happen. Um, so yeah, utility explained. Um, um, yeah, yeah. I the best thing is always in the mix. In the end, um, the lesser I have to work, the better. For the result of the mix, or the track. Um, how far you go with volume automation, it depends for every track. Um, I spend minutes just checking how far I have to go. Is it you just play that part again and again and again? Like, is it too much? Is the jump from soft to loud too hard? Then you make it a little bit less aggressive. Um, if you don't feel it that hard, you can go a little bit further or deeper in your in your dip. So it's sometimes it's 1 dB, sometimes two, sometimes three, sometimes four. Um, it really depends on the elements and, yeah, the break in total. Um, but it really happens that I have to push down for like 6, 7, 8 dBs in mastering, because their build up or their break was so big and their drop was so soft in comparison, that I really have to push it down. Um, so the best is to do it, um, in the mixing part. And if it's really that crazy when I'm mastering the track, most of the time or every time I will go back to the engineer, but not everyone gets it. Not everyone is skilled to fix it. So when I notice they don't understand what I mean, or they don't know how to fix it, I will do it myself in mastering, and that's how it's gonna be. Um, yeah, the volume automation in that master bus. What I do now, my um, current productions, is that I do it on the master with a utility, and maybe a slight trick in between, or slick, slight, sneaky trick. Let's call it sneaky. Um, so utility is, I think, one of the best tools Ableton has to offer. Um, kind of. It's a Swiss Army knife for sure. So I use the volume automation, but for people who maybe don't know, is that you can right click the width knob and put it in mid side mode. And this is where the fun happens. So what happens with more experienced engineer, or people who are in it a little bit longer, or other genres, is that they will automate the mid side. You can do it with any plugin that offers it, but utility has it. So for example, what I could do in the break is use the mid side and do this, make the break go more to the mids and more narrow. And then when the drop hits, you just go back to normal. But it's that difference again of going narrow in your sound and then opening all up. It's the same thing with volume. You lower down the volume and you make it jump. It's the same thing, but it can work together really well. Um, because you're going narrow in sound, you're going down in volume, and then when that drop hits, it's boom. Wide. Whatever synth you have, or no synth, I don't mind. Whatever you have, it's going wider. The volume is going up. So it it's a trick I use now and then. But volume for sure. But mid side, when I think about it, I use it. So yeah, sneaky trick, sneaky trick. Um, so we had the kick. Um, Now we're going back to the percussion. Mm, in my newer productions, I have way more percussion. Back in the days, I was less is more. I tried to get as much as possible with as less as possible. I had this studio educations when they were recording on tape back in the day. They didn't have 100 tracks or anything, So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to get as much as possible with as less as possible. Um, in my current productions, I don't think that way anymore. I just want a proper vibe, good percussions, filled up spectrum. Um, the elements we have is actually this drum and bass loop, and that's actually the most important loop in the complete track because from this loop comes the screech. But I'll explain it later. So the loop is originally this. I used drum and bass loops before, not that much. I'm not using any loops today because I try to make my own loops with field recordings and whatever. I'm trying to not use any sample pack at all. What is for me more fun and challenging. But back in the day, I used loops. No shame in that, of course. The cool thing with drum and bass loops is that they groove. They have a groove. They have a vibe, and it fitted for the vibe I wanted. Um, but I made it noise. How did I made drum loop the noise? It's really simple in Ableton. Some people know it, some people don't. So, that's why I want to show it anyway, because this one is already processed. Um, it's the vocoder. Really simple. You just put it on and it's noise. So yeah, it's simple as that. So it's a really cool trick for people who want a more dirty sound, um, more nasty sound. Noise is life. Really, noise is life. It's as simple as that. If you want a heavy sound, percussions, I use noise all the time. Um, and you make your own percussions, your own sound, your own touch, and it's as dirty as you want it to be. Um, from from that part, um, I use an EQ to cut the lows, a little bit more mids. I'm not a crazy EQ user when it comes to sound design. I try to get the best out of the starting sample. Um, and I used this plugin from Waves to enhance some bunch slash transients. It's a transient designer slash transient shaper, but more based on frequencies. I think you can see it as a kind of dynamic EQ. When it hits a threshold, it's gonna give you more frequencies. So it's a kind of dynamic EQ-ish thing that I can name it. The end result is this, and that's kind of the main loop of the track. Um, that's how I started to build the um, the percussion of the track, and then it's all pretty basic. I used some more loops, as you can see. I have to check what this is. Basic heads. Um, these heads are the more broken pattern. That's also how I got inspired for the kicks. I was scrolling the loops and I found this hi-hat loop, um, two hi-hat loops, and I was like, okay, this is cool. And it sounds like this. So you see it's working together, and there's also hi-hats can be a really cool thing to yeah, I don't know, introduce or give a certain vibe. Um, the longer I'm getting into production, the harder I focus on my hi-hats because they really kind of decide the drive, the vibe, the tension when the open head. it- like every techno guy is waiting for that open head, the tss, tss, and woohoo, we're gone. But you can play with this so hard, and that's why I use um this sample, and then also made the kick the same as that because I really liked it. It's like breaking. It's a really break of the track, and um, yeah, I love broken beat stuff, so that was an easy choice to make. Um, what do we have more? Probably really simple. An open head, a clap, and something else. Yeah, plop. Yeah, it's a ride. I think ride and an open head. Um, and that's already kind of it. Like I said, it's not that crazy track, but um, it's kind of what you do with it. And then there's again this noise, and this is what I mean with I use noise all the time. Is for people who saw my first masterclass, I showed them this, and I'll show it again. I use a lot of noise, and Ableton has really cool tools when it comes to noise. Um, analog and operator. And for analog, um, I was always listening to these techno tracks, and when that drop hit, I could hear something go open, like to tight, and I was like, "Oh man, this gets me going so hard. This is what I like." And then out of the blue, I think I was hearing a ABSL track, and I could really hear it was noise. So I was like, "Oh damn, why didn't I hear it before? It's noise." So from the moment I heard that, I was just fooling around, and you can just use this noise oscillator. Um, and what did I do? Yeah, I saved presets, so I have to check again what I did back in the day. So as you can see, what happens behind the scenes is that I have a noise oscillator. I have a filter with an envelope on it, and whenever I push the note, the filter goes open. The cool part, and I'm gonna draw in some quick notes to show you, is that you can play with the filter whenever you want to introduce something or you want to build up tension. And it's so effective in a way that I love it. Um, so so I'm gonna turn off my mic really quickly to show you. So it's just super effective because you enter a, you know, you want to introduce a new part and you slightly automate that filter going open, and you're building up that tension of the noise that's getting more aggressive. And the other way around, you can open it up completely when a drop hits to get this kind of noise downlifter but with your heads. And when it's open, it's like and then it goes tighter, and on the tightest point you throw in the open head, and it's like, ugh, for me it always get, I really love it. Let's say, let's keep it like that. um so to show you this, that point, you can see where it happens here, kind of. I'm gonna show you quickly. So you can hear that it's not super dominating, but you can hear it's there, and it's building up tension. Even if you don't notice it from the start, you can feel it, and that's the point of the noise sets, and that's why I love it. Um, and yeah, you can do so many things with it, and for me, I use it all the time. This layer, I think, is a stereo layer. Um, I think so. Let's check. It's the other way around. um, so this one, the top one, is yeah, it's kind of tension background noise, but still it's a head. So it's still giving you that, that drive of hi-hats and um, whatever a head has to do. It's doing its job, but it's and a hi-hat and a riser and a downlifter and background noise. So it's all in one with just one tool. Um, yeah, and I just use it so much. It's like it's in every track. It doesn't matter how many heads I have. It has this noise head all the time. Um, what I used as an effect, I think I did it with a delay. Um, it's not mono compatible, but it's cool in stereo when you use a delay and you put it completely dry wet, feedback off, and you're gonna, it's like I think it's kind of Haas effect um when you change the timing between left and right. you're gonna get this kind of stereo, phasing image, whatever, stereo wideness, but it's not mono compatible at all. So when you go to mono, it's kind of gone. So that's why I use two tracks, and I do it all the time. When I want something really wide, I have two versions. It can be a synth, whatever I want wide. I have a mono version and I have a stereo version. Um, so whenever my track goes to mono, I still have that mono compatibility. Um, but yeah, I think this is the trick. Let's check. So yeah, I don't know, people with speakers or headphones, I think you can hear it shift between left and right if it's stereo, the sound. I hope so. But this is the trick. It's really simple. It's not mono compatible, but that's why it's doubled over here. Um, yeah, that's it. Kind of, and this gives that I have the mono. So it's yeah, I had a question I was reading, but um so yeah, I have the stereo and I have the mono version, and this gives a cool stereo effect when you're listening it on headphones. um whenever you're listening stereo, but when you're going to mono or a mono speaker or whatever, you still got your mono version um of the complete thing. When it comes to noise, that I want to maybe give another tip or trick I want to give with you when it comes to noise and what I use a lot, especially in hard techno. If you want that, heavy percussion sound or whatever, um, operator is your friend. Where is he? I use this one again all the time. I have them both. I have operator and analog, working at the same time. Analog is for what you heard few minutes ago for the tension, and operator is really for that heavy percussion. With analog, you can really use any note, it won't change. With operator, it has a pitch. So, and that's also the cool part. So, you just take your first oscillator, you put it to noise looped, and that's it. So, yeah, I can already hear, what's happening. So, if you want higher pitched percussion, um, you can just use it with higher notes. If you want that lower sound, you just pitch it lower. Why I use it, and I use a lot of noise, is because the fact it's everywhere in your spectrum, and it's a positive thing because it fills up the gaps. It fills up um, frequencies that my other samples don't fill, for example. And I notice a lot of tracks also that I have to master, they usually lack some of that mid information, those mid frequencies, and that extra mid energy, upfront stuff, and noise really gives you that. Um, Wherever you want it to be, it's there, and that's the cool part about noise, especially when you go to hard techno. If I would, it's just to show you. Mm, if you want that hard techno that I know that the gallop everyone uses, or I use it a lot when I'm making hard techno. It's really easy, and it's you can layer it with another kick, layer gallop, whatever. But then in the percussion, or my latest release, it just gives bass notes, but it's going all the way, and it really creates this heavy percussion. Yeah, that just hits you so hard. So operator, noise looped, really awesome percussion tool. And if you go crazy deeper with distortion and whatever for sound design, yeah, that's really crazy stuff to be made with operator, or layer it with metal hits or different kind of hits or foley stuff. You can really blend it to your own cool percussion. um yeah, sneaky trick part two. um so that's the percussion group. um what I use on all my tracks from track two is this chain. And I think it's kind of my signature percussion sound, because I don't know if many people do it, but I learned this trick from a friend before. Um, and it's really cool. I can show you exactly what it does with this chain. This one is already bounced to audio, but yeah, I can easily recreate it because I just saved this preset and I use it again and again and again. Um, so what I'm doing, I'm making a new audio track, as you can see here. In the input, I route the perk group, um, and put it on in. On the channel, there's the basic reverb. I actually hate it, but for this it works fine. Um, with 60% dry wet, kind of. And then I'm gonna use a ping pong delay with almost the same dry wet and just, the mid higher, whatever, the filter here. So what's happening is that, um, when I, what happens is that I put the percussion in a room and I'm delaying that room. And this gives a really cool effect. I really love it. It's really in every single track I make. I use it as an effect, especially when I use faster tracks or hard techno-ish tracks. Um, it can really be a cool effect. So let's just show you what it does. So I don't know what you guys notice, but for me, it's two different worlds. Without it, it's boring, empty, just heads doing doing their thing. With it, it's living. It's coming to life. It's filling up grooves. It's filling up. It's making the groove kind of for me because of those delays and that reverb, and it's giving depth. That's I call it my perk depth chainy. It's giving depth to my percussion because I'm doing this with a room. Um, and it works so well for me. It's again filling up those spaces, those gaps in the in the stereo field, but also in the within the track, going way deeper than normal heads. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but it gives me goosebumps every time, and I use it so hard. I use it as an effect because um, to explain further, what happens is there's a compressor for some peaks happening here from the delay, and then really heavy sidechain compression, like super heavy, and this is what makes it groove. Um, but when the kick disappears, there's no pumping. It's just like tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. So when you're making hard techno really fast, boom, 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 you take away the kick, it's like prrrr, poof, and it sucks right back in. So it's such a cool effect. Um, yeah. Um, I don't know what else to say about it. I got a question about it. Wait, I have a question. Do you do that when producing filling spectrum with analog operator noises, or do you check it later? Yeah, when I fill up my spectrum, it's all in the producing part. Um, I'm so used to it that I start a project, I started blank, but I always use kind of my same signature bass elements like the noise heads. Um, but I use a lot of noise. For example, I used samples here, and that's something I don't do anymore. I use Massive X, for example, or other synths that have nice noise oscillators. I distort them to living shit, and then I'm gonna cut them all up in pieces and use the faders to make my noise loops. Or I'm gonna use. I can show you a few. Yeah, I'm still working on a sample pack for ages, but what do I do? Um, this is with a plugin called Damage. Still need to make way more. Oh yeah, this is kind of what I do. I use foley. I go record samples, and I'm gonna destroy them. Then I'm gonna cut them up and make them into loops. Whoa. And actually, you see, it's like noise loop 47. It's because I just record 16 notes with Massive X. I distort it to living shit. I just record it and start going through the presets of the synth. Doesn't matter what it gives me, you know? And I record it again and again and again. And then when I have a big file, I'm gonna cut them all up and make my own loops. I would normally do this on the spot and make a groove that fits the track I'm working on, but this is for a sample pack, so I just made a bunch of loops where I'm gonna be more selective in the end. Um, this is with Massive X or basically any synth. You know, when you use Ableton amp on heavy mode, instant destruction. You know, so it yeah, I think the mind is the limit when it comes to destruction. Foley percussion, I could show you some stuff as well. Um, let's see if there's something cool in it. Yeah, different stuff. Oh, this one could be cool. Like I went to Bijou. Probably some guys know him here in Lyon, and we were in a room, and I was recording it because it had a typewriter, like an old school typewriter, with the thing. And I fucked it up completely. The complete session, and there's parts where I'm talking or people is talking, and it all gets squashed in the same thing. Um, just quickly show you how percussions can be really cool to fill up those gaps when I'm producing. So yeah, that's what I do when I start producing. I For me is that I'm more of a technical guy, and searching through sample packs kills my vibe. It kills my creativity, and I need to trigger my creativity. And how I trigger is that is by doing stuff. So that's why I use Foley samples a lot, or I go and record my own samples because it triggers me in a creative way. Um, Next to that, it gives cool textures, unique sound, and it fills up the gaps rather than clean samples, because a clean sample is a clean sample. There's nothing interesting about it rather than it's clean, you know? Yeah, for the next question here, cool effect. Wondered how I did it. Quite heavily compressed. Yeah, it's basically this, you know, the chain delay, a reverb delay, compression. The compression is really so gentle. It's just for the slight peaks, you know, to even it out. Oh yeah, I had my mic on. Sorry, guys. Um, but yeah, heavy sidechain compression, and that's it. And I use a utility for when the kick is going away. For when I remove the kick and the volume goes up from the effect, I have the utility to counter that volume whenever it happens. The volume automation. Um, so yeah, that's that percussion trick. I have another parallel uh, parallel channel, and I didn't find whatever I did there. I didn't find it in my backups, but it's actually the same thing as the perk chain thing for the depth. The same way, perks in the input, and I just use parallel compression, but really heavy compression, and I mix it in parallel. Let's see how that sounds. So yeah, nothing super special. I don't remember the compressor I used, but 9 times out of 10, it's the distressor plugin from Slate Digital. It's super aggressive and dirty. Um, so probably that. What I also like to use sometimes is EQ to make it more darker, or saturation or distortion to create that dirty layer, but you just mix it in a tiny bit. When when you go into a production of a band with drums, guitars, all that stuff, it happens a lot that they actually use mics, or at least that's how I did it in my education. We just dropped mics randomly on the floor or somewhere. I don't know, just because we can. And these are the dirt mics. These are the mics that we're gonna slam with compression and whatever we want, and we're just gonna, you know, give it a tiny bit. And the crazy thing about it is that the complete drum falls apart without it. Um, because it is that noise, it is that distortion, it contains these harmonics or these extra juice that to fill up, you know, to make that drum bigger, fatter, heavier. Um, Now in techno, we really don't have a full drum. It's a slight different, but I do use parallel compression for my percussions for extra dirty sound or extra um, transients, whatever. Depends how I compress the signal. Um, but it really works to if you want, if your percussion is a little bit too soft and you want it to have that little extra push, parallel compression can do just that. Really easy, simple. Um, so yeah, that's what I used here. Um, and then we go to kind of um, the main sounds. Let's say percussive sounds. I don't know. It's actually the foley. I sampled it before for another track that never got released, but I sampled the sounds and I used it here. And I don't know, some if you want something industrial, what works better than industrial noises? You know, it literally says it all. Industrial. So I was like, okay, I gotta think industrial. Boom, factories. Um, I'll show you the tracks and where it came from, because I still use that long sample I sampled from YouTube. I still use it often. It's full of cool sounds. Um, so let's show them. So yeah, that's kind of it. And that's for so that's what I like to do. I love to search um that cool sample, and rather than searching through a sample pack with this like boom tss, doof, 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 tsh, doof, I go searching through this file of machines that are working. I search them on YouTube, I sample them, um, and I just let it run. And I'm like, okay, I hear this kind of beep, cut it off, distort it, boost it, whatever you want to do, make it big, and before you know, you got this really aggressive sound that just makes the track. Um, and then the cool part is when you find a few of these sounds, is that you make them work together in a groove together with all the other things. Yeah, and that's just what I like to do. It's like from this track out, I did it a lot, and this is really, in the end, is one of my oldest tracks, but it meant so much to me, this track, and because out of this track came all of my other tracks in the genre that I wanted to do. So um yeah, for my future productions, this set a kind of signature sound, because I did it more and more and more. Um, I got a question here. The plugin I used for the stores for the parallel percussion here. I didn't really use a distortion plugin, but you could use any distortion plugin. But the plugin I used, I'm gonna show it, um, because we can, is from Slate Digital. You got this bundle, and it contains the virtual mix rack, and it's gold. It's super gold. Um, I pay monthly for this, but it's worth every euro every month. So, um, for people who don't know, you have these crazy ass compressors, analog compressors named Distressor, and it's perfect. If you want heavy compression um, with lots of color or saturation or whatever, Distressor is your machine. There are not a lot of plugins. I think, is it Empirical Labs? I don't know. You got these um, plugin builders with sound cards. I always forget the name. They got one. Um, yeah, Slate Digital and I think Empirical Labs. I have to, I don't know, lie on that. I don't know if it's the name, but they got a distressor plugin as well. Um, but it actually got it gets used a lot in broadcasting and radios, on the vocals, on drums, vocals. It's really cool, if you want that extra bite. And I could I could show you, how I would work with it. Let's just do it. Kind of like this, really fast. I really slam it. I would fine tune it probably a little bit more, or maybe use a second one or a third one. It's, the sky is the limit. Whatever you want to do with it, you just do it. And I even got a chain from Tom Hates. I showed it, and he has four compressors, and yeah, UAD. Those are the guys. Um, and he has four compressors or three compressors, and I think I made it four, for because I could. And he has macros linked to it, and whenever he has one macro, and it adds one compressor every time, so you can really, link four compressors doing exactly the same thing. And when you twist that one button, you always activate one more, and this can lead into really cool parallel stuff. Um, so yeah, but to be honest, parallel is really the way when it comes to sound design, because this track is pretty simple to what I make now when it comes to layers and parallel processing and all that stuff. But that's really a big key into to heavy sound design, is to have, let's say, I don't know, I use it on kicks, like one clean, one clipped as hell, one distorted as hell, one completely stereo and distorted as hell, one clipped, distorted and stereo with a low cut. You just layer it, and stuff comes out. So yeah, parallel is the way. Um, the the samples come from this sample. I'll show you really quickly just to know where it comes from. It's nothing special. So, when you scroll through this, I just hit somewhere. I'm like, okay, this is cool. You got percussions here, snares, possible snare layers or snare samples. You got the woof woof. It's like the swoosh effects. I think I even got it as a sample here somewhere. Yeah, this doesn't matter, but these kinds of, um this is gold for me. Like, this sample would do more to me than a sample pack. And it's free from YouTube. You can just search it. Ironworks, factories. Some videos have these stupid music playing, but some really have the video with the recording, people recording it. And it gives a lot of cool samples. Um, so if you're going for an industrial touch, think foley, think self-recorded stuff, think factories, and sample it, use it, and you'll get a complete different sound than when you're searching in that sample pack for that one industrial sample. It takes two times as long, with probably 50% of the result, or you get a sample pack full with really cool industrial samples and everyone uses it. And before you know, you hear the same sample in the track and you're like, fuck, I used it as well. And that's actually also the reason why I quit doing it, because I heard that and I was like, shit, somebody used the sample. It's not gonna happen again. I'm gonna make my own samples, and I'm gonna be unique from, let's say, start to finish. Um, Now I haven't shown you my send return stuff, also because it's more, in the end. Um, I showed you or told you that the drum and bass loop is actually the main loop, also bringing you the screeches. Um, so you can see it's. I sent the audio to the return tracks here. One is this crazy chain. Um, let's start here. I think I have to start here. No, it's okay. So what's happening over here? This is making the screech. And I got inspired by my mastering mentor, who was telling me that what would help for me in my production was a Sherman filter bank. Um, and I don't know why, but I was listening to this track and I was, I don't know, working with it, and I was like, oh yeah, filters, let's use it. And you got Filterfreak from Soundtoys, and this is what makes the screech. It's the heavy filters with a big resonance, um, that are making it screech, because it's noise. It's gonna screech way harder. Cool part about noise. So yeah, that's basically it. I think I put the filter freak on the element, and I was just scrolling through this preset, and I was like, damn, this sounds cool. What can I do with it? And I used it as a send return track. Um, if, can I play this silent? Can I? Okay, yeah. So nothing's coming in, but the envelope follower, for people who don't know, is you can see this data here, this line. You can link this movement to anything you want. That's the cool thing about the envelope follower. So you can see it, that it's here linked to the frequencies of the filter, frequency and resonance. One is for the frequency, and one is for the resonance of filter two. This means that filter one is always giving the same sound, and filter two is giving the modulation, or the change in sound, um, to name it that. And I think then we got, um, yeah, the LFOs as well. I think one is making it jumpy. That's the envelope follower, and the LFO is sliding through the frequency. Um, Added on that is Isotope Trash, one of the most crazy distortions ever. Um, and a utility probably for volume automation, and the EQ8 to cut the low end. Um, yeah, I'll show you how it sounds, but that's how how it's designed. Filters, moving, distortion, done. Um, then what I did is I can send return channels to other return channels, and that's what I did here. So on this Screech, because it's also a main element, um, I sent the audio to the reverb. It's a big reverb, um, and to Echo Boy. it's a delay, so reverb, delay, and tantra. It's actually to top it all off for extra um, glitchy glitchiness, extra delays, extra whatever. Tantra is a machine. You know, I'll show it. I show it later what it can do. Um, I used it back in the day a lot, or I experiment a lot with it. These days, not that much anymore. But I used it back then as an extra effect. So I'll show you piece by piece what happens. I would, yeah, the filters go crazy all the time, so I have to have to mute it every time again because the filters resonate. Um, I have to think. Normally, I could show you in solo, but it's because I routed it to this pre-master bus that I can't solo it. When I solo it, I hear everything. Um, but it's basically, yeah, the screechy sound. Um, it goes into the delay and into the reverb, making giving it more delays and more screechiness, and then the tantra tops it off with even more stuff. What is tantra? It's actually yeah, how do I say it? It's a sequencer effects thing. So you have a sequencer, and whenever it's, let's say, colored here, it's opening up like a gate kind of, and then the audio signal goes through all these effects. And this is the chain, and you got A and B, so you got two effects chains, kind of. The matrix here for, modulation, um, EQ, reverb, yeah, a limiter because you really need it. But you could make spacey stuff from a drum loop, from everything you want. You put this on, and it's making crazy noises. So yeah, it really worked. I also love this preset. Um, yeah, that's kind of it. And we got the plate left. It's for the clap. I always use plates for snares and claps. A short plate. Yeah, I learned to do it that way, and I love it. Sometimes I use gated reverbs on snares, but yeah, it's really weird. But it's, yeah, the noise, the drum loop is actually the starting point from the screech. And people always find it crazy, like, how the hell did you make that screech? It's so crazy, it's a noise loop with a filter on it and some extra effects. But yeah, I don't know how something jumped in my head that I had to use filters, and I used Filterfreak, and it came out. So it's a happy accident, as they call it. Good things always happen out of the blue. So um, yeah, the pre-master channel, it's actually a filter, and I think it's used in the break. Um, why I use the pre-master channel is to let's say, not to have this processing separately from the master group. So I could use this channel in my head. It works better, to have it separately, and I could use this channel for a master chain or limiter or whatever. Um, and it's, if you really want to keep it separated, it's cool to have this channel doing the volume automation, and the filter automation, and also here it's mostly for the break, with the echo, um, to enhance the silence, or the, I don't know, the run-in point, towards the drop, for that little thinner sound, cutting off the bass, and the echo to have more delays, whatever spaciness, and then drop to the drop. Um, so yeah, this is it. um, this is the track. Yeah, more or less, this is it. Um, for mastering, I can't show you what I did because I mastered it in my um because I mastered it to in the studio of my mentor where I learned mastering. I used this track to learn mastering, mastered my own track there analog, but it's nothing crazy. I think a tilt EQ thing I can do here as well. Tilt EQ, for people who don't know, is this. Yeah. So that's a tilt EQ. Um, Multiband compression, mid-side EQ, compression, limiting. That it was a really simple chain back then, but it's super effective. Um, for the pre-master, um, I sent everything to the pre-master channel. That's why I can't solo the return tracks, because everything is sent to this channel here. I think it's channel 23. Same with here the sends. I have to send it to the pre-master channel, or you got it separately, and you can get weird sounds, because it's not really one global thing anymore. It's sends or return channels and everything else, and it sounds weird. So you have to send it to that pre-master channel. So that's what I did. Um, Bus processing. Yeah, back then I didn't do a lot of bus processing, but for example, if you see my kick chains right now, it's a mess. It's a bunch of groups with I don't know, killer chains. So yeah, you got to think this track is made, I don't know, almost 3 years ago, I think. I was just, I think, uh, done with my education in Holland. I think so. Yeah, I was really in my starting days. Um, so I didn't do a lot of processing what than I do right now. If I would do this again, I think I would use a little bit more percussions. Um, I would do my mix way differently. For example, the low cuts. Um, yeah, this is just a master track that I had here for spare, but I think I wouldn't use this channel anymore. Um, yeah, what would I do differently? A lot of it's frozen, I think, so it's already been processed. Um, hmm, yes, trash on the percussions, but I don't know if it's doing a lot. I think just a little bit distortion. But for example, what I would do now, what I didn't do back then, is put another EQ here. Because I can low cut all these samples. When I use saturation or distortion, the low end is just back there. It's just back. So I think I could show you like this. How am I gonna show you without hearing anything? You see? So this is what happens when you're distorting next to a low cut. It's just coming back, and maybe you don't hear it, but it's gonna build up and it's gonna become a messy thing with all the low end building up. So it's actually a mistake I did back then that I'm not doing right now anymore. But it's things that I would do um, better. I have this kind of ritual um, when I'm in my final stage of mixing. Um, I check every single track again and again and again. I check it on volume to make sure my volume balance is correct, and I check it on the low cuts. Um, if it doesn't have a low cut, you see that my standard EQ is a low cut around 100, 120 hertz. So I would use the low cut, and like again here, I don't, maybe the transient designer is giving more low end. I would do this. Here I would cut it a little bit further probably. I don't know. You don't have to cut it that far, but probably I would do it. Depends if it's playing in the break or in a busy moment. But yeah, I don't know. And probably here as well. Okay, I used low cuts. I did well. Um, yeah, I think that's kind of it. I would do more processing probably on the kick or not. Depends, because sometimes simple is just good. If it works, it works. Um, and I think that's the most important part. If it's simple with bus processing or just one plugin doing everything, if it works, it works. So yeah, that's kind of it for this track. Um, I would say we can do some um, Q&A or whatever if people have questions. There's still time left. I can answer some questions. Doesn't matter what it is. If I need to show you, oh yeah, I can show you Tantra maybe, uh, because I can. So I need an audio group. Doesn't really matter what I'm gonna put in there. Um, let's use live drum recordings. And this is the preset that I used in this project as well. You can actually kind of hear the elements, what's happening, but I just love how it's screechy. So you can just go through all these presets or make your own crazy chain and sequence to make crazy stuff with it. but for some reason, for me, it's like it's like, I don't know, psytrance machine or something. Instant psytrance vibes. Uh, so we got some questions here. I heard you use like the sweet spot of the sample you're cutting, but maybe there are some rules or things you can guide through that. What you exactly mean? I'm not 100% following the question of uh, Juan, if it's pronounced correctly. Um, is it cutting in low cuts or something else? So I got another question here. What did the envelope follower do to the sound um, in the filter return channel? So what it's doing, um, what it's doing is this. So the filter makes this sounds, and the envelope follower is picking up this sound, this movement, and that's what you can see here. The up and down movement um, of the sound, and you will use this movement, this thing that's going up and down, and you can link it to anything you want. And I linked it to the frequency here, same as the LFO. So one modulator is doing the fast movement that's making this glitchy, up and down movement. Um, and then the LFO is doing this really slow movement to make the filter go up and down. Uh, let's say up and down, more left and right, or in a more let's say steady way. And this makes the fact that it's also the screeches are also moving kind of. Um, so yeah, the envelope follower is just following the signal and modulating it again. So it's kind of modulation loop. But it works really well on EQs. As anything you want, you can make dynamic EQ with an envelope follower by let it trigger it with a kick, and then you modulate on the bass, for example, an EQ dip. So you can make a dynamic EQ with an envelope follower. It's a really powerful tool if you go in depth with it. And again, it's like your own imagination is the limit here um, when it comes to envelope followers. You just gotta fool around with it, put it on everything you want. I don't know, a synth, and just let it modulate itself, and you'll get some cool stuff. Um, when you cut some extra frequencies that distortion and this plugins bring again. You use some rules for to use the low cuts. You mean some kind of guidelines to use low cuts and cuts in general? So that there aren't really rules, but the guideline that I use is everything below 100 hertz. It's for my kick, it's for my rumble, everything that has to be powerful in the low end. So I cut everything around 100 hertz, sometimes a little bit lower, sometimes a little bit higher. Um, Even if it's a bass synth or synth, I will. Oh, I can just put an EQ here. Sometimes you have these elements, you cut it around 100 hertz, but it still has this nasty bump over here, making a muddy, frequency. I just cut it a little bit more, like this. But this is kind of how my low cuts look like in a project, on everything except the kick or rumble, reverb, or yeah, whatever. But there are no rules. I'm not a crazy EQ guy when it comes to boosting. Some people go way hard in it. I could boost really hard, but then it's in a chain with distortion to push a kind of frequency. But when it comes to mixing sound design, I'm rather cutting than boosting. I just cut away what I don't need. Um, yeah, maybe a thing that I forgot to tell people, and it's a really cool tip and trick for finishing your track, especially in hard techno, especially in industrial, where you're gonna use lots of distortion, um, noise, and heavy elements. Is 4,000 hertz is a bitch. Um, I didn't use it. You don't see me using it here on my percussion, but I could try and see if it's popping out. But what I have to do a lot in mastering is dipping resonances, dipping this whistling, uh, resonating sounds, and it's a lot between, let's say, 1K and 5K, but mostly 3K, 4K. There's a lot of this harsh buildup, and it's all coming from the percussion and some other elements. So let's see. I'm gonna turn off my mic and see if I can find it. But I know I checked the track again and I was finding this nasty resonance and I was like, damn, you know, didn't took it out. But I think I can do it. I think I could do it here. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Or here. Let's check. Here you can hear it a little bit. It's like this tiny whistle, and this is something I do every track. Let's say the end of the mixing part, I do a low cut and I check for that 4K resonance. Some samples have it, some don't, but I found a lot of samples. Um, I found, yeah, that a lot of samples and a lot of, I don't know, even sample pack samples have these resonances, and cymbals are kind of resonant elements on its own, but they really have this nasty whistles, and especially rides. I hate rides just for that. I just hate them. Every time I have a track with a ride in it, my ears are bleeding most of the time because the people just put it too loud or they're not cutting the resonances, and I got kind of sensitive to these resonances because I have to listen to it day in day out, and it's sometimes, damn, so it's a pretty cool tip I can give you, as, let's say, mastering engineer. Something I have to do a lot of times is that 4K dip. um, Check your samples. I know the 909 samples have them because I have to dip them every time. Noise also has it. um, so that's a small tip I can give you that I would do differently today, compared to then, is, yeah, that that resonating stuff. Um, so yeah, I it's really fun. It could be possible that the next time you open a project, you can hear it because now you know it. You know, I just had a guy in the studio and he didn't know it, and he came home and he said like, "Dude, the first thing I noticed opening a project was a 4K whistle that I didn't hear before." And that's what happened with me as well. I didn't hear it before. Your ears are so used to everything they hear. Within a few seconds, they're used to it. And I just one day I heard it when I was mastering, and since then I'm doing it all the time and getting more sensitive to these resonating elements. But it's a good tip for everyone out of here. If you don't, if you're not doing it yet, start doing it, try it, and see if you can find these problematic resonances. But just dip it until it's gone. Don't dip it like a bottomless pit. You know, like you don't have to dip everything like this. You know, just a tiny bit can be enough. When it's gone, it's gone. So yeah, that. Um, do I use parallel compression on kicks? Hell yes. But in different ways. Let's not just parallel compression, parallel destruction. You know. I don't know if, for example, I'm just gonna take this kick and I'm gonna show you a chain that I used in my tracks with Johnny Piras and Kams. It's more hardcore-ish, schranzy sound, just to show you how far parallel processing can go and how easy it is in Ableton. Um, so I always save these groups. Um, a bunch of plugins opening up. Now, don't let's say don't be scared. You don't have the plugins. Just use what you have and find the golden spot with that. You know, like the Ableton amp is so crazy. The saturator, if you fool around with it, you can do really crazy stuff with it. And you got utility, you got all the other tools. So I'm just gonna show you the sound. And this one is more designed for that schranzi stuff. So I'm gonna can I show this pretty quickly? Yeah, no idea, but I have, if you look at those projects, then my kick group would look like a single kick, the gallop kick, one or two, um, and this is all pushed into one group, and then this chain goes on it, and it gives these crazy effects of madness. But what happens here is I got a clean signal. Um, I have a distorted signal, completely distorted, stereo spread, low cut. After it, a new chain, same thing, but with a clipper. The signal is being clipped, and it's all launched, you know, all together into one sound. So this is also parallel processing. Um, all of this goes into this filter that I use as an effect. This goes into a new effect track with the signal as it was before, and again parallel clipped to pieces channel. This goes into an EQ to take away some harsh frequencies straight into another clipper um, with a limiter to control the peaks. You know, and that's kind of it. But even the filter is a nasty machine when it comes to the drives. You know, I'll show you. 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 I' So you can just fool around. This is not giving the most crazy results, but believe me, if you put it in a big group with kick tails and the galloping tails, it's ripping it to pieces. So yeah, just to show you what I do, as well as ODT. People who don't know ODT, it's a preset from the multiband dynamics or a free plugin from Xfer. Um, it's upward compression, like kind of expansion, upward compression, and compression at once. So it's really squashing everything, but you can play with it and really push kicks into another dimension, or kick groups. Like I said before, like for the hard techno with the layers, the galops, you can all put it in one group, put OTT on it, and make it slam like crazy. So I can show this as well. And the cool part is people most of the time just put it on the channel and that's it. But the fun comes when you're starting to play with these three frequency bands, and you can really shape the sound, as it is. On synths, it's really perfect. On kicks as well. And what I do a lot is just start grouping it, start duplicating it, and then I would clip this one, for example, duplicate it again. I would distort this one completely to pieces. Um, Duplicate it again. I would use another clipper. Duplicate it again. I would use trash and just keep searching until it all fits and it all adds up into one massive kick. Um, or kick group or whatever. And this is this is compression, but you could use a limiter, a compressor. I love clippers. Clippers are amazing when you want heavy sound. So I do use parallel compression and stuff on kicks. Again, if I just show you the basics, but try it at home. Um, and don't think, just put a lot of shit on it and see what comes out. But for me, it was a game changer to start working like this, especially for that heavy sound. Um, Sound design with VSTs for leads, resample Foley sounds. Yeah, I use synths as well, but I'm really bad at it. Um, I use Faceplant. I don't like to use Serum for some reason. I just can't find my way with it. I've seen tutorials, everything, but Serum stays difficult for me. Um, yeah. So, but I do use them. Um, can I give an example? I think most of my tracks have VSTs in it, for synth design, but it's always a struggle to find the correct synth. What I also love to use, and I think in my Scorch track on definition of hard techno, um, I used orchestral stuff. Uh, I'm just gonna can I show you what happened? Um, I don't know where it is. Anyways, it's just when you go to the sounds, and I really love them actually, orchestral. You got this really cool sounds, and I love to use the double bass, with has this mystery kind of sound. Whoa. I just love how it sounds like the brrr, it's how I like it, So I use it as layers. I use a lot of layers with my lead or bass or whatever. Um, and one synth, it was just a tuba, a fucked up distorted tuba, and um, and a violin strings. That were the lead sounds. The track's name Scorch is just the tuba, and the tuba is the big bass, because it can really, you know, blow that big stuff. So yeah, it depends. Um, Sometimes I use for over 9,000. I used a granular synth to make crazy stuff. That's also really cool. So it depends. Um, do I use Suit too? Yes, I use it as well. But I found it um, not always that effective as an EQ. Um, it's really cool and it's really good. I use it almost every master. I use Suit 2. For people who don't know Suit 2, it's a let's say mm, a de-resonator. I don't know how to name it, but it's a kind of dynamic, really super fast dynamic EQ thing um, that dips resonances, and you can fine tune it really well. Oh, if something. Okay, so what you see now is actually what it's doing. So it's dipping, frequencies or possible resonances, and I can search it, what I want it to dip, but it's not always the same as effective because you're dipping also the surrounding stuff. Yeah, bye, Talib. It was really cool for you to have you here. Thanks for joining. Um, so I love to use the EQ on the elements. I just search the problem. I just dip it, done. And the suit can help, but sometimes it's doing too much. Or you're just constantly fine tuning it. Um, so it's kind of, I use them both, suit and EQ at once, and mastering, for example. How to set your clipper tool for kicks? Well, it's hard to explain. It's always different. Um, I showed this to other people, like how I treated my kicks, but um, yeah, it's always different. You always gotta find that sweet spot, and every clipper is a little bit different as well. So the clippers I love to use is the Sir Audio Tools standard clip. It's 20 euros. It's amazing as hell. I use it every master. You can push it, you can use it gentle, you can use it and you don't even know it's clipping. Clipping it goes so far, it's a religion for me. So standard clip is a really good one. It looks like this. Um, and for that price, really 20 euro is the best 20 euros I ever spent in my whole life. It's this clipper. And why it's for me hard to tell how to use it, because I can push the gain here into the clipping, but I can also use this soft clipping modes that have a saturator. It's actually like bending this shape here, and this gives a bunch of distortion as well, and a different sound than other clippers. And then you got oversampling, what makes it a little bit cleaner. And so this is a clipper I love to use. You have the TDR limiter, also not that expensive, and it has a bunch of modules, but the clipper is cool. And I also use the peak limiter in combo. So this one is a lot of my kick groups, whatever, um, on the master. And then I have the waves. Um, the waves. No, I'm not plugin alliance. Waves API. Um, Compressor. I saw this trick from the Satan, a hardcore producer, and when you put on the analog, it's actually a clipper. You can push audio in it and or manual makeup and really clip sound super hard. So I watched it from him, and it's actually a really good clipper as well. So on the master, I do both slide, compression, like 1 dB, and clipping. So yeah, it's a cool clipper. But the sweet spot is something you have to find for yourself. I can send you a chain, and it can suck on your kicks, but when you mess around with the knobs and whatever, it can sound super good. So how to set it, it's up to you. It's up to you how to find it, and how far to push it to your own taste. And you got to do it a lot. I learned the producer how to do it, and in the beginning it was pretty rough, but when he was trying it more and more and more, he really got a clean but heavy clipped sound. It's dirty but clean at the same time, and that's what you want. But it's a lot of fooling around. um Casrock K clip is pretty affordable, or free clip. Yeah, I have a lot of. I think I have the Casrock plugins, but not the K clip, I think. But yeah, there are a bunch of clipping tools. Even Ableton has. There's a Max for Life clipper. Someone made it, but I don't really like it. But Saturator has a soft clip option. You can make it clip, or use as a clipper, and the glue compressor as well. It has a soft clip option, but I never really pushed it that hard. Maybe I should try it. Um, but yeah, there are a bunch of free tools when it comes to distortion or clipping. And yeah, if you really want to go in that super hard style, I could also suggest you to check out the Heresy master classes. I did one where I show you how I did kicks, or how I do kicks. Ichneon System did one how he does his kicks, and then you got the Satan how he does it, and they all do it differently. But that's the hard stuff. For me it's just techno, but these guys, they bang out the craziest kicks with a synth and distortion. um so yeah, probably I'll do one myself, for the page, how I do my gig groups and buses, but I'll keep that for another time. Because we reached the end. um So I think it's cool. Maybe if people have some questions, to answer a few more questions, and then um, call it a day. So I don't know if people have questions or anything. For my part, you can unmute yourself and ask it that, like that, if it's easier. Oh yeah, thank you for being here. It's for me, it's super fun to do. It sounds weird, maybe someone just opening up his books, but for me, it's really cool to do. So Um, so thank you for being here. It's for me, it's really cool to explain it, show it, and help people. Um, I do use sidechain um, as an effect in um, in different ways. I use a gate, or I use a compressor, or I use track spacer. Um, the gate can be really cool, and sometimes for me even better than a compressor. The Ableton gate. So if I want to simulate it, um, sidechain kick, mm, and then flip it. I think that's what I did, but I need something to show it quickly. Come on. Let's see. Yeah, that's sidechain ducking with a gate. You just flip its function. Um, and I tend to use this more than compression because when you fool around with the hold release and everything, you can really make it work a little bit cleaner, I think, than a compressor, because the Ableton compressor has this nasty side effect when it starts to tick. When you want it to be fast, it's like tick, tick, tick every time that kick hits, and it gets me crazy. So I stopped using the compressor, um, start using the gate, or I use LFO tool or a utility, and I do it myself. I cut the volume myself, if it really has to be precise. Or yeah, LFO tool. It really works well. Volume shaper, or track spacer. It's a kind of sidechain EQ. It really works well when you want to dip the frequencies. Um, and um, it dips the frequencies from the kick. Instead of volume, it's dipping frequencies. And you could even, I use it a lot in mid side mode and just let it work on the mids, so my stereo field remains untouched. And this is pretty cool, that because it can flow, and everything in the mid has to work or dip when the kick hits. So it's a really surgical sidechain tool. I think like 50 or 60 euros, maybe with a discount, even less. But if you want clean sidechain and that's really effective, Track Spacer is your man. Um, and that's it, kind of, for sidechaining. Um, Doug Buddy. Well, yeah. Well, the cool part about Ableton is Max for Life. It's just a blessing. People make awesome stuff, and you just download it for free or you buy it for a few euros, and you're using it. Um, so yeah, Doug Buddy, it's really cool. I think I have a chain, Mother Ducker from, I don't know what it is anymore. But they made a chain and they gave it away once for free. Make Your Transition from Paul Nolan, I think it's his name. He has the Mother Ducker, and it's actually the shaper from X for Life with a utility. Uh, you can do the same thing, or just use volume automation, works as well. Um, uh, I can hear in your track that there's always a kick that is more present, that is shorter, and another bass in the background that acts as a kick but is longer and more background. Yeah, in my since the definition of our techno EP, um, I'm starting to do this more, and I'm reusing those kicks again and again and again, especially for the punch. But it's how do I say it? It was made in raw kick. Again, I can show you. I can just show you while we're at it. Um, and it's because it's really separated in three samples. You got a punch, you got a bass, and something that gives a reverse kick with a delay on it. Um, let's check. Whoa. Yeah, Wanton kick. That's it. Whoa. I'm gonna put that a little bit softer. So yeah, that's actually it. So you got that one punch layer. I think it's from uh, damn, the outside agency. Legends. Um, and it's a nasty kick punch and just a sine wave, in the F key, because I love to work in F with a big bump boost in the subs, and this one is turned off right now. I can show you. So I think I used one track with and one track without this layer, but that's basically it. And even if it's another kick from another track, I will always push that subby tail until the max. And this can be done when, for example, even with this, I would make 3 layers. Again, I would duplicate this 3 times with the same MIDI and let one for each layer I have a MIDI channel, and then I bounce it to audio. And even when the kick tail is not heavy enough, I duplicate it. If I need more punch, I could add another punch, the same kick again, but just the punch, and it goes on and on and on. And with my other tracks, the same thing. I can use a kick where I start, the bass kick, and I add another attack layer or I add another attack layer, a different kick attack layer, or if the kick tail is not heavy enough, I duplicate the kick and I just use the tail, and because it's the same thing as before, it just adds up because it's in phase. So you're pushing on a natural way that kick tail to a bigger or louder kick tail. So, but yeah, that's how I like my kicks. I like that big punch to start, and I like the big bass, but it can be everything. I don't know if I sampled my recently made kicks. I don't think so. But for example, the Soft Tube has a module called Heartbeat, and it actually has really good 909 kicks. So I always use this one to layer. So it's nothing crazy, but it's a cool 909 kick that I designed in that plugin. But it has this nice attack layer or bass. It's a cool bass kick to layer. So, but I don't think I have my latest kicks. I have some remixes coming out. Um, yeah. So that's kind of it. Um, but I always kind of have the same way of working since I like how it sounds. Good punch and a good flowing bass. Um, but it's layers. Again, it's layers. Um, in the beginning, I tried to get as much out of one simple sample, and it worked well. But it's really in the layering where the magic happens, and it also really works well to have a separate punch or two or three, whatever, how many you want, and a separate tail, and some go even in between. So yeah, I think that's kind of answer to that. Um, but yeah, it can be as simple as you saw, just a punch layer and a sine wave, and you start processing it because here it's all in one, but it's not that crazy. Um, you have your sample, you have your processing of filter, distortion, EQ, and here another effects. It's clipping, and in my third layer, it's also EQ and some other effects, and it's all together. It's like 3 layers, and it comes down into your master. You can see the layers here. So you can do this yourself even without a plugin. Just layer, just process, layer, and experiment until it sounds good. I think that's if you look at Bijou with the machines, he has the electrons, but he also has kick layers, and they're all processed differently. But in the end, they sound big because it's a layer of kicks. Um, so yeah, I think that's the quickest answer I can give right now. Um, So yeah, I think it's cool um, to call it a day here, maybe. Um, yeah, I want to thank you all again. It will definitely not be the last time